This is your brain, and this is your brain on Eusexua.
I see snap.
Here we are with FKA Twigs and her third full-length album. 11 songs long, running at about 42 minutes. Eusexua, taking quite a big step away from Capra songs in style anyway, and I'm kinda liking it. But what is Eusexua? I mean, I'm not actually that sure, but FKA Twigs, in her own words, that feeling you get when you've been dancing and you've lost 7 hours to music. It's also if you meet somebody that you really like and you're kissing all night long and you lose track of time. You know, the more you think about it, the more you start to realise she's just describing Mandy. Or perhaps it's just a more in-depth way of looking at Euphoria. To be fair, there's a whole collection of CDs going back to the noughties based on this concept, which incidentally, you might find a lot of similarities between the two. Look, I know, it's a bit deeper than that, and she describes Eusexia again as that moment of nothingness just before a big surge of inspiration, or that moment before an orgasm. To be fair, I don't think there's like a good way to describe that feeling. And Eusexua does seem to work here. Whilst I think most music isn't as deep as everyone likes to think it is, there's a lot to be said about Eusexua. And honestly, FKA Twigs seems to be taking us on a journey of electronic music. I hear a lot of comparison to Charli XCX and Brat, and for me it's not that similar unless you count the fact that they kind of stem from early-ish electronic music. I enjoy them both, but one of them feels like a sweaty basement rave, and the other is twirling around on a dance floor with your camera on selfie. Starting with the opening and title track Eusexua, straight away you're introduced to that distant sound of the kick as you're anxiously waiting in line for the club as the eckies are slowly kicking in and you really want to wash that taste out of your mouth. And finally you get in with that melody slowly building up. And then FKA Twigs starts singing at the 2:30 mark as you finally reach the dance floor. Taking clear influence from the early noughties here, I think, with all those trance tropes, but here it really works with her vocals. And I love the ending where the voice starts to get a bit more euphoric and the synth sounds start to get stretched and distorted, like someone's kind of messed with all the settings on the synth, playing into that feeling of Eusexua again, which you kind of hear throughout the whole album. Nostalgia at the moment is a pretty common theme in music. You have so many songs over this album that just really hit that nostalgia note, like Keep It Hold It, channeling a bit of acid house, or Striptease, where you get that influence of drum and bass in the latter half. Incidentally, I wasn't really massive on this song, and I think it's because of this split between styles. I just didn't really click with me that much. But coming into the late 90s now with the song Girls Feel Good, weirdly reminding me of Beautiful Stranger by Madonna or something from early Seal. That sound that was really popular at the time. First thing I'm noticing here, and kind of all over the album, is the mix is really good. The timbre is quite diverse, there's a great use of space going on, especially around the 3-minute mark when you get that sort of guitar sound come in alongside all the electronic noise. And then you have her high-pitched operatic thing going on. A really great atmospheric track overall. And these good tracks carry on with Perfect Stranger. This is the song where I do see some comparisons to Charli XCX, but FKA Twigs sort of doing her own thing, and I think she does it really well. Channeling that house era with that classic repetitive bass. Vocals, again, obviously sounding really great. There's these moments where the sounds sort of flow from one ear to the other, and this really does the track a lot of favours, adding this element of euphoria. I think all these songs are played into the title of the album. With Perfect Stranger, the concept of meeting someone, knowing nothing about them, nothing's bothering you, it's just them here and now. And I like that she's sort of cementing this made-up word, giving it real meaning. And you hear this on tracks like Striptease and Room of Fools. Coming back to Drums of Death featuring Chorus, I found this track quite interesting. From the start with these heavy sort of marching drum beat, interrupted every now and then by some glitches or reverse sounds, and then it takes it up a notch with these stuttering vocals. Again, like a really great vibe. Personally, I would have listened to the whole track like this, but I do like her voice, so no harm done. Room of Fools, another hard trance track, sounding quite similar to the opening song, but I actually think I prefer this one. It's heavy, it has a nice flow, and her vocals have these really interesting inflections on them, adding some drama, giving it a bit of extra sauce. Getting a bit slower with Sticky. Overall, the slower songs on the album are perhaps my least favourite. Parts of this track though reminding me a bit of Aphex Twin, especially that bouncing ball synth that you hear. Obviously not quite as chaotic, but still. And again with these glitchy vocals, which do liven up the track a bit. Lyrically, it's quite vulnerable, so it does work in that slow, sort of calm setting. Coming on to Childlike Things featuring Northwest. I'm not just saying this because, but I don't really get this song or like it that much. Musically, it's quite stale compared to so many other songs on the record. I don't actually mind what I presume are Northwest's vocals, but lyrically it's a bit like, what? Yeah. Last few tracks on the album now, starting with 24 Hour Dog. This one having a bit more of an ambient feel, which I actually quite like. This vocal effect and the ambience that's happening in the background, it feels very open and isolated, but it's these extra sounds coming from left to right that really make this sort of a delightful song to listen to. Slightly meditative. And then finally leading us out with Wanderlust. Overall quite a nice track to end on. It feels like the morning after a pretty chaotic weekend, reflecting a bit on life. I enjoyed these stop-start moments with the instrumentation. It's the last half of this track where the percussion comes in. I'm kind of ready for something heavier, but it just fades out into nothing. Fades was such a huge thing back in the day. Like, just end it. Fades serve nothing but disappointment. With Eusexua, FKA Twigs takes a pretty big step into nostalgic electronic music. The album feels personal but equally euphoric. A satisfying middle that I guess you could describe as Eusexua. Unlike Capra songs, this album leans heavily into club culture, drawing from trance, acid house, a bit of psytrance maybe, all of that late 90s and early noughties electronica. While some tracks don't land quite as well as others, whether that's due to pacing or style shifts, there's no denying this album was a pretty good shot. Whether that's through like hypnotic production, really tight mixes, distorted vocals, or pulsating rhythms, I think she's kind of successful in capturing that feeling. Is it an album that wants to be heard or felt, or maybe a mix between? Or is it something that needs to be experienced in the moment? Either way, I had a good time listening, so with all of that, I would probably give this album an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know below. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, whatever you like, and hopefully I will catch you on the next one. Thank you. Can I just say, 300 subscribers to me is like a really big deal. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it a lot.